What is that?
With the sound of that chime, welcome to today's retreat.
Did you do that?
It's her phone.
We're just trying to raise the bar here.
That'd be cool.
Vanessa, please call the roll.
Chair Milligan,
Here.
Vice Chair Davis, Treasurer DeVarty, Secretary Hatcher,
Here.
Trustee Fleming,
Here.
Trustee Landau,
Here.
Trustee McKnight-Warren. Here.
Good, we have a quorum, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
And support, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Are there any public comments today? Anybody with us who wishes to come before us with any thinking? Seeing none. Were there any written communications, Vanessa? No. Turn to capital projects. President Blanca,
Thank
please.
you very much. Well, good afternoon. I'd like to thank the trustees and everyone for making time today in your schedule to meet with us to talk about the capital projects. And the purpose of this meeting is to specifically address the projects that are in your board packet for approval in 2 weeks. We discussed them very briefly 2 weeks ago, but we wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to ask some good questions about the projects that are before you, okay? Now, what,
Go ahead.
okay, realizing though that, there are more projects than just this. We have the student service, the student success building, at the SC building, but we weren't going to address that today because we tried to keep this to a 2-hour meeting so that we can have a good discussion. Of course, if you have questions about that and you'd like to discuss that when we're done with this agenda, Bill is ready to do that, and CB is ready, and we can move, we can do that. But for today, we really wanted to just focus on these three. And speaking of that, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to CB, because I don't think you have had the opportunity to meet him. CB Smith, you want to take off your mask so they can see your face? This is CB.
Just like going to the airport.
Yeah, ID check, right?
Yeah, so CB is the Director of Design and Construction Services, and he's been with the college for 4 years. He was hired by Damon, and he has brought a wealth of experience and knowledge to the projects across our campus. CB has a master's in structural engineering from the University of Michigan, and he's a licensed professional engineer, and he also has a builder's license. Prior to coming to CB, he worked as a project manager for one of the largest general contractors in Michigan, working on large industrial and educational projects. In fact, the last project he worked on prior to coming to the college had a project budget of over $800 million. Besides his construction and design work, CB has 15 years serving between Northfield Township and Ann Arbor Township fire departments, and he is currently a lieutenant in Northfield. He's also on the Washtenaw County Technical Rescue Team and is a structural specialist for Michigan Task Force 1. So CB, we're glad you're part of our team, and he has been, he works very closely with Bill and also with myself, so we wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to meet him. And I know you already know Craig Lipstack, who is our Associate Vice President of Facilities. Is that the correct title? Facilities, Maintenance, and Grounds, right? All of that. Okay. So,
Rose,
yes,
would you say his name more slowly and spell it so I know his name?
CB Smith.
C.B. Smith, thank you.
My full name is Charles Bruce Smith.
We'll call you Trey.
The trip.
Thank you.
would you mind if I turned it over now to Bill Johnson?
I'd be happy to have you do so.
Okay, Bill?
Very good. Thank you, President Blanca, Board. As President Blanca mentioned, we're really here to talk about the three key projects that we had brought before the board at our last meeting. One is the Morris Lawrence, the increase in that project from 10 million to proposed 13.5 to specifically address the technology. And Todd Kruger and Steve Robinson are going to go through that in detail with you in just a minute. The second is the facilities building and Great Lakes addition. We're asking the board to establish a $4 million total project for those activities, of which 2.6 would be WCC money, and we'll go through that in detail. And then thirdly, we presented to the board the capital outlay report that has to go to the state by the end of October. We intentionally left off both the executive summary and the capital outlay project request because we were in the middle of still assessing what we thought would be the right capital outlay project to submit. And we want to talk with the board today about possibilities for that capital outlay project. So those are the three. And then lastly, we wanted to address Trustee Hatcher's question she had regarding funding for both the ML increase and GL expansion facilities project, just to make sure that we knew where all that funding was coming from. And Terry Barnes, our CFO, we have a slide at the end that will walk through the board. So that's our agenda for today. So we'll start out with ML. Just in summary, the total project now is being proposed at 13.5 million. Again, the board had approved 10 million of increase. That's already been funded. And now we're asking for the 3.5. To integrate the technology improvements into this project, we actually accelerated the start time of that project. It was going to be towards the end of December. Now it's going to start on November 8th. We have a very detailed plan around that. But still, the end date is still the same. The date is June of next year. It has to be done. We have our trade partners here next summer, and they use the MI building starting with iron workers. The project scope is most of the public areas in the building, with the exception of the finishes in Towsley, although as Todd Kruger is going to talk about, we are going to address a number of the technology issues in Towsley. Just to remind the board of what our vision looks like, we are going to do a complete new canopy and skylight system for the ML building. We're going to add a patio to the west side of the building, kind of right outside where ML 150 is. Here's some more pictures of it from the ground level. This is from the kind of the main entrance, the east side level. As you walk in, you see the capture of the skylights when you walk in. The flooring's all new in the atrium. We're going with terrazzo flooring throughout, which should last 100 years. Terrazzo floors last a really long time. We're upgrading the finishes, all the wall finishes, all the restrooms, all the HVAC systems in the building, a number of the electrical systems in the building. We're greatly improving the energy efficiencies. I'm just going to scroll through these pictures. So with that, I'm going to turn this all over to Todd Kruger and Steve Robinson, who's an audiovisual consultant, and they are going to walk through with the board the details of the technology improvements for our new building. So
Can you bring us the presentation, please?
I will. Just get that there. Go ahead. You can see it there.
F5.
Function key.
There we go. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to come and talk about the ML project. If you can't hear me, please let me know, and I can take my mask off if you prefer.
You're good.
Good. But excited to talk about really what we're trying to accomplish here. So really, our overall objective is to provide technology in the Morris Lawrence building that is appropriately robust and indicative of a leading-edge conference center. That's what our target is. That really kind of shapes and frames what we're trying to accomplish here. So what we did to come up with the plan is obviously sought feedback from everyone that had stake in the game, if you will, stakeholders, conference participants. We wanted to understand what the gaps were, what wasn't going well, what was going well, and what we needed to do going forward. So that kind of framed what our plan was, and then we put together a requirements document. Now, I wasn't going to go through the entire requirements document here today, but I did want to hit some of the key topics of what we tried to accomplish with our design. So we wanted an agile, flexible configuration capability. We wanted to be able to meet the unique needs of our clients while also making it as easy to set up as possible. So that's really what we did. We wanted rooms capable of hybrid operation. So in the world we live in, having people remote is kind of part of the new normal. So what hybrid means is you can have presenters and or participants both local and or remote. So giving us that capability is really part of that intro statement that I said earlier, robust and indicative of a leading edge conference center. Digital signage with high visual impact. I think that kind of speaks for itself. We want a wow factor there. We wanted wireless presentation capability. Here's another thing that's indicative of leading edge is where the presenter can be behind a teaching station, or they can wander, move, whatever you want to say, about the room, interact with the students, and teach. And then finally, we wanted to have less setup time, more conference time, if you will, in the seminar room. So we wanted to set them up so they were much more flexible. Yes.
Please.
The other, in addition to this, we wanted to be sure that whatever we did, we were setting it up for the future. So we know that sometimes you can't buy the whole thing at one time, but we wanted to make sure that we could take the piece we could do right now, but whatever we put in place can always be added to. So that was so important to us. So, okay.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Great point. So that's really what we aimed at doing. I just from a background standpoint, in a prior life, I have experience leading a lot of AV projects, if you will. That was for a different institution, but we were very aimed at understanding what the institution, what Washtenaw needed. So I've experienced leading those, but what I needed was a consultant engineer to lead the design. So we have identified Steve Robinson from Sound Decision and been working with him. He's been meeting with our stakeholders, coming up with the design. And I'm going to turn the mic over to him, so to speak, to walk through that design. At the end of his comments, he will go into the AV cost structure, and then I'll talk a little bit about the other cost structures, such as network equipment. So with that, Steve Robinson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. So I'm Steve Robinson, as he said, from Sound Decision, 35 plus years in the industry. I started as a music store here on Washtenaw way back, and I evolved into contracting, AV contractor, and then my own consulting business in 2006. Notable projects are Greektown Casino and Ford Field. But plus I've done a lot of higher ed institutions. So with that as my intro, we can go right into this. In the building, we identified spaces for different needs. And so we're going to start with the atrium and the patio area. So one of the needs was you rent out this building a lot to a lot of different groups. So we wanted to present a wow factor. So when you come in the door, it's like, wow. So what we're looking at here is you can see on the left is the location, the column right now. You see this little paper stand of the group name or whatever that is going to be there for that day. But if you look at the right, we're looking at a video wall column here. So now the company who's renting the space or for scheduling purposes they see it right on there, and it just presents that next step in technology that this is the state of art facility for them. So we're looking at a video wall around the column there for one part of the atrium. The next,
No,
any questions?
I just wanted to make sure that the board knows. I mean, that is so exciting. Okay, it's very cool. You can see tell that it is. But it's not going to go all the way to the ceiling.
No, it's
because
8 feet tall.
It's how long?
8 feet.
8 feet. Just so you know that, because the photo that you see here goes all the way up. All right, so I don't want you to be surprised. But it's still going to be amazing. So, okay.
The other section is over on the left wall where the benefactors, that's going to move down the hallway, and we're going to put in on the right these touch displays. And these displays will be for people can go into a building and get information, whether it be history of the college, schedules going on, different classes. So it's an interactive type thing for people to use, and that's the location of it.
And, may I?
Yep, feel free.
And so we're not, sales donors' names, that's really important. We're going to keep the donor names, but just not there. It might be down a hallway, but we are still going to have that information to honor those people. Actually, kind of be nice, Phil, we had new donor names. This. Okay, I know, I just had to do that. But, and Bill, Mr. Chair, since you're on the board of that foundation also, new donor names on that wall, but anyway.
You're here.
Next in the atrium, we're adding a drop-down screen, a very large drop-down screen that is out by the patio wall there. They use a lot of setup time to put up this screen and projector every time. This will cut down immensely. It'll just height up into the ceiling, so will the projector. You won't see it at all. So aesthetically, it's going to be great by just popping it up into the ceiling, and setup time is 1 minute to bring it out. So. Plus, it's going to have a good sight lines throughout the whole atrium area to see that screen. We're also adding a new sound system in there, which is desperately needed. The speakers are going to be more focused in different zonal areas, and they're going to have better sound reproduction. There's going to be a new lectern available for that space that just plugs in and can plug into. We have floor boxes throughout the atrium that they can just plug into, and it'll sit right over the floor box with no cords showing, and all AV will be able to be just cast off of that podium. Out in the patio, we're going to set up outlets and conduit for people to plug in so they can take equipment outside. And then we're also going to have a touch. All these spaces, what we're making these spaces do is they're going to be easy to use. So they're going to have like a touch panel that has a user interface that's really simple for the user to use. It's something that's severely lacking now. There's a lot of setup time in all these rooms, turning on things. A user touch panel, just one button, and it's good to go. So you'll see that theme throughout all these rooms. And the next room we're talking about is the conference space. So this is well, we're in one of them right now. You can see we're in Lecture Hall 101. What we're showing here is kind of an overview, and I just want to go over these 5 rooms and their history. How much time is set up? Every time someone comes in, they have to set up a projector, they have to set up a screen, they have to set up the mics and sound system, and there's a lot of labor-intensive stuff going in. What we're proposing is every one of these rooms is going to have a projector and screen in them, retractable. They'll have a new microphone system that's FCC compliant now, because FCC has changed their laws. There's certain bands that you can't use anymore. So those need to be changed out regardless. With that, any one of these rooms will be interchangeable with the touch panel. So the setup time now has gone from hours to a minute. It'll take longer to close these doors than it will to change the AV system in the room. You'll notice the green on here, they're for floor boxes. There's a considerable amount of trenching that needs to go on in these rooms in order to accommodate floor boxes. This is so when you set up a podium, it goes right on top of the floor box, and there's no cables running anywhere. You don't see people taping cables 20 feet. It's just going right over it. And what those floor boxes do then, provides a pathway for future cabling. Let's say cabling changes, we still have the pathway there, and it's an easy change.
No more duct tape, huh?
Correct. That was our big goal, was to get rid of any duct tape. I think we'll pay for the project in a year with that. This was set up for easy to configure with multiple avenues with good sight lines, so everyone will be able to see a screen. I've touched on the new sound system, floor wall plates. We're also equipping cameras in every room for that hybrid situation. So now this room, if we wanted to do a hybrid talk on a Teams or a Zoom, we could do it right in this room. Real easy to configure. And there will be a new lectern also for them to plug into, because that's the heart of it. We've also set it up where if there isn't a lectern for the room, there's a touch panel on the wall, and they can just turn on a video or speakers. For those are when they don't need the robust AV system. We could also keep it small. That's the conference. It's a meeting space. Any questions on that?
Exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yes, ma'am.
Have our conference staff and people been involved in this?
They were
design?
an integral part of this.
Good, yeah.
We spent hours with them on this and walking around many times, just making sure that we covered everything.
Good, thank
So,
Are there any improvements to these partition systems that we're thinking about, or are they,
There are, yeah, brand new wall partition systems.
I mean, do they work any differently than these do?
CB, do you know?
It's still the same basic function,
Okay,
but they're all replaced, all tracked. It should be easier to glide.
okay,
More robust, but the same general.
cool.
great. So the 150 meeting room we'll talk about next,
This is near and dear to our heart.
which is near and dear to your heart. So the screen you have in there is old and small. That definitely needs to be changed out.
But when it was put in, it was big and new.
Correct.
We remember something.
The actual projector has a hard time going back into the ceiling. And we're worried one of these days it's just not going to go back into the ceiling. So that lift has to get replaced, and the projector. We're going to provide a new sound system in there again to meet FCC with wireless. The room is going to be capable of voice over IP and Zoom capabilities, hybrid room. So it'll be all ready to go with cameras. No need to set up cameras. We've developed some better floor box spots. Since the room's been used a lot, we went over it with Patrick and the AV team and come up with the most used points of the floor boxes, so we don't have to use tape, and put the podium right over it. Again, we're going to put a new podium in there. That podium that's in there now is a little small, so we want a little bit bigger podium that handles, people can put their laptops and equipment on. And again, an ease-of-use touch panel. Yes?
This is on a much smaller scale than what you're talking about. But I do remember when Morris Lawrence was alive and designed that room, for music and performance. And I was just wondering if we could do something to commemorate that in the room. Picture of him or some mention of his name for that space. And as I say, it's a much smaller level than you're talking about, but while we're on the room, I would sort of like some acknowledgement of his input in terms of history. He wasn't a donor, but he was very important to that room.
Okay,
We'll make a
Just a
note of that.
suggestion,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, we'll make a note of that.
good idea.
Is that his picture on top? Who's up? I never paid attention.
I don't know.
What's that up there above the door?
It's what?
It's who? Oh,
Performers, yeah.
performers, okay. But yeah, that's a good.
I actually took a class from Morris one time. So, anyway. And that's the boardroom. Any other questions? The conference room, 120 right over here. So what we're doing, we're not changing the table, so this is just more of a picture showing what we're going to do with two screens. We're going to be putting two screens in there. So you could do a hybrid situation where you have a Teams call and see the people on the other end, and on the other side of the other screen, you'll be able to see the content of what's showing. So that room will get two new displays, camera, new ceiling speaker system, microphones, and wireless presentation. So somebody could bring in their iPad, their phone, their laptop, and be able to present on the front wall conference room. And we're also putting in floor box there so that there's no cable running and people tripping in there. So, questions on that room? Now, Towsley. Towsley, the current lighting and sound system is end of life. It's good 15, 20 years old. AV lifetime is 10 to 15 years. Technology has changed so fast. But I think with the 4K we're implementing, we'll keep it good 10 to 15 years with what we're putting in. Your lighting, though, is using a lot of power. It's the old incandescents, and it needs to be changed out to LED. Also keeps you within green standards.
Same lumen level?
Yeah. Yeah, the LED fixtures nowadays are just amazing what they can do. So we're looking at changing that out, changing the sound system. Everybody I've ever talked to says, yes, please. So I guess it's been nothing but problems, and I can see why. We're going to provide, so the little blue line there is where the screen's going to go. It's going to drop down. What's going to happen is two projectors are going to fill that whole screen, and we'll be able to put multi-video on there. So we could do, if the board's there, we could put agenda up there. We could put other things, keep the agenda on one side and put the content from somebody else's computer on the other. You could do multi-windows if they have even the art department or the drama department. If they got a play, they could put stuff up there. So music, they could put who's performing, just a variety of things they'll be able to do with it. And the sight lines are such, we have everyone can see in the auditorium where the screen's going to be. We'll touch the sound and video. We're adding floor plates in designated spots, so a lectern could be plugged in different areas. That's been the common theme because a lot of setup is where you're putting lecterns throughout this building, and the time to set those up and tape them down takes a lot of time. Now would you just be able to put it right over the floor box and plug it in? So, and it's set up for 2 cables instead of 8. So, with the new technology.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I'm thinking, you're saying a new sound system. Right now, when people want to speak or, give a report or something from the audience, do they still have to go to a microphone and speak?
Yeah, they'll have to go to a wireless
Still
mic.
have
But the wireless mics, again, need to be changed out because of FCC.
Okay.
So that's something that has to be done anyway. But the new sound system, they'll have wireless mics. Yes, you'll have designated spots for that.
Okay,
Okay?
okay, great, thank you.
Yep. And again, ease of use touch panel. Anybody can go in there, and we'll give them the basics. Since this is an auditorium, there's definitely a hands-on for bigger performances and bigger productions. But when it comes to if somebody just wanted to come in there for 10 people, they'll be able to like easily turn on the projector and screen and the microphone. So it'll be set up for that. The classrooms here are also outdated, old projectors, old screens. So what we're looking at is providing new projectors. The academy, we talked to them, and they wanted a whiteboard type display, one of them. They have 2 displays. It's set up for a hybrid situation also with cameras. Every one of these rooms will have a camera in them, so it turns it into a hybrid classroom. New ceiling speaker, the instructor station will have a PC, laptop plug-in, and a document camera. And again, all easy to use by just a touch panel. Any questions on those? Okay. So with this, in maintaining all these rooms, we're providing a room scheduling system, which will tie into your EMS system. And so now at each room, red means, hey, it's being used. Nobody opening the door now to see if the room's, available. They'll be able to see, hey, there's a meeting in progress. There's the red light's on, or green means go. And this is scheduled, again, through Patrick and the EMS system. Any questions on that? No? Do you want to talk about this?
You can start out with AV budget, and I'll talk about the network budget.
Okay. Yes.
The scheduling system and the red and green light, is that controlled by the person in the room or by Patrick from the?
It's by it'll actually do it by the schedule. So once it's scheduled, if it comes at 11 o'clock and you have a meeting scheduled, it'll go red right at 11. So it can be also interfaced with the room if Patrick so desires to turn on the system and do everything for him. So it's all integrated into each other.
If we ever come up with an AI to handle all this, we're going to have to name it Patrick.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay, save the best for last, budget. So we broke down each individual area for you on the left for the AV. The conference rooms are going to be the most expensive because this is the most intensive AV portion. Keeping in mind, nothing's been done in these rooms since the beginning. Very little, I should say. As you can see the different room sizes in the classrooms. You could divide that into 4. I'm sorry, 3, and the police academy has its own. Which brings us to a 1.7 on the AV budget total.
So if you don't have any questions on that, we can go through any line item you want in more detail, but that's kind of how it breaks down, yes.
Cabling seems to get superseded and old cabling become obsolete when we're fiber optic cabling the backbone. Is it going to have a good lifespan, or will it be
Yes.
outdated too?
Yeah, so we'll just jump right over to that, yeah. So the fiber optic backbone is what gets our large speeds in the different spaces. So yeah, we're putting new single mode fiber, which will be critical to get us to speeds with video, et cetera. So that's a core component of our network budget over here. You see we got $50K allocated to that. And then, did I answer that question for you?
Yes.
Yeah. And then as far as the network electronics, you'll see a large number there. There's a lot of networking gear that goes into what we're doing here. What we're doing on the AV side is very obviously network intensive. And so there's a lot of switches in the building, and there's switches in the various rooms. So there's a lot of that. Plus, we're aiming for a very high concentration from the Wi-Fi standpoint. So we've got nearly 30 switches. We've got 40 access points. We've got transceivers, Cisco licensing, other things. So there's a lot of network that has to happen. The reason that this room or this space here can be done for as economical as it can is because of a new technology, which we've not really gone into, but it allows us to use, network cabling, if you will, it's called AV over IP, but it allows us to do things a lot more seamlessly, but it also requires a lot of network gear. So without getting into all the details, it was because of that technology that this project, in my mind, isn't, a lot more expensive. So that's your network, and then on the network hardware line item, you see there's racks, there's uninterruptible power supplies, those types of things. So those uninterruptible power supplies are not meant to last for hours and hours, but if there's a power blip or those types of things, that's what the uninterruptible power supply will get us through, which is very important. And then there's obviously a lot of building infrastructure work that has to happen to make this all happen. Steve has mentioned a lot of projectors and screens that go up into the roof. Well, we don't want an AV integrator cutting holes in our ceiling. That's being done by the contractor. So there's a lot of things that we had to tell them what we needed, like trenching the floors. All those types of things obviously have to be done before you rip out and put the new carpet or the new tile in. So there was a lot of building infrastructure that has to happen. But as Dr. Blanca mentioned earlier, because of that, floor trenching, because of a lot of the things that we're doing, we are trying to put in the infrastructure for things that we may need to do in the future. So, because it's much easier when the building or the floor is torn up to do those things than having to do it after the fact. So there's been a lot of thought into making sure this thing was, I always hesitate to say future-proof, but very future-conscious. And we're really trying to think of what those future needs are in the future so we can leverage the space how it needs to be. So that is how we get to our tech upgrade budget of about $3.3 million. Yes?
I don't know if this would fall into category, but would this be any LEED, like gold, silver, green, whatever? Would this project that we're doing overall, would it be something like in the gold, the LEED qualifications?
I'm going to turn that over to...
Sure. As Todd and Steve mentioned, for instance, in Towsley, to switch out the lighting system from incandescent, that's certainly going towards the big project. So the entire building, the lighting system is going to be switching over to LED. The HVAC systems are high energy conservation rated. So we have put a lot of design effort and dollars, frankly, into energy sustainability. The board policy is that we try to attain what is now LEED silver. Used to be LEED gold, but now then they raise gold up to the stratosphere. So we're at that LEED silver, which is the equivalent of the old LEED gold, and that's what we try to attain in our buildings, including with this project.
Okay. Thank you for that. Now, I kind of mixed it up there, and I didn't realize it, but thank you so much. Appreciate that. But, Todd, with this system that we're doing, with all the changes of supposedly right now, in this day and age, this is the top of the line, correct? That should come to you. This is the top of the line, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Then how long is the system to last?
Lifespan of AV is, 10 to 15 years. With the backbone that we're putting in place for networking, it's just going to be a matter of changing out. The cabling in place is going to probably go 25, 30 years.
Okay.
it's just going to be electronics changing out, pieces and parts now. So something goes bad, you change out a little $500 piece of electronics now instead of all the cabling and all that. So
It's something that right now, because I know everything, technology changes tomorrow.
right,
So in 10 years or 15 years, depending on what that component is, it would last up until that point.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing you have to, sorry.
No, I don't know.
The only thing to keep in mind is there are some things like projectors. Now, the good thing is we're not putting in projectors that require bulbs, so that's a great thing. But laser projectors do have a half-life over time. So at some point, depending on usage, laser projectors will need to be replaced. Now, I think you're probably right with the amount of usage, et cetera. I'm thinking even those laser projectors will probably get 10 years, whereas in a past life, I didn't get anywhere close to that in the prior technology. So some of those things are more defined than others, how long they're going to last, but you're right. We've got the backbone, and we've got the technology that's going to last a good long time.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to remind the board that when it comes to Towsley, we're just doing the technology
Right now.
right now. Well, we haven't talked about renovating the entire, I guess we did that not too long ago.
Right.
So just to remind you of that.
You're saying the technology improvements will be done independently of the building renovations?
No,
Are they gonna be
we're
done?
going to,
Is it all going to be done at once?
yes, but what I mean is, we're not going to get new seating, new wall coverings. We're
Right,
not
right,
going to figure out a new stairway to the
Before.
stage,
Right.
that kind of
That's a
stuff.
separate budget.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that we're not looking at right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? This is exciting stuff. Yes.
I think with the new technology, there's not so much of this, but does that cost include sort of what you have to take out, what you have to dig up, or is that in another budget?
Yes, that's in part of
The infrastructure budget that the building infrastructure budget,
This is just the new stuff that we're looking at right now, not how we get there.
Yeah, she's talking about demo and stuff like
the,
that.
the demo's part of this
It is part of
infrastructure.
it.
yeah, the building infrastructure in the bottom right, that's where they'll take the old stuff out,
Okay,
and do some of the other stuff need to happen.
thank you.
I know we're probably getting to this, but how long is this building going to be offline?
It's going to be offline for 7 months, actually 8 months.
And we have contingency plans as to where we're going to put people in the interim, or are we just going to?
We, those CB and team have been working very hard with each of the stakeholders in this building, and moves have already commenced.
Like a really big tent?
But we're using multiple spaces. So for instance, a lot of the classrooms, like the music classrooms, were moved over to Landau as
Okay.
one example. The dance, they're actually using the fitness center, a few of the rooms in the fitness center. So some of this stuff, we were very proactive, even not to hold them for the fall. But for a lot of the staff, though, we are putting them, so for instance, in the children's center. So we have cleaned out that building, and we're prepping that building for temporary use as a staging place for some staff.
But in terms of large groups, that's going to be somewhat constricted, I assume.
We have not opened the conference center activities since COVID occurred. We have just done very specific local activities like lake board meetings.
Well, I suppose that's good then, because we're not really displacing people. We haven't been open to begin with, so we'll have a grand reopening.
We will.
We displaced them a long time.
We did.
So,
Administratively, are we looking ahead at months 9 and 10 with an eye to beginning to book events for when the building reopens?
Yes, Chair Milliken, there is very strong demand starting in July of next year. So bookings have already commenced for that.
Excellent.
Okay, let me point out one more thing. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I have noticed in my own business dealings, and my guess is that Chair Milliken has noticed it in his business dealings, contractors seem to be somewhat stressed right now and are not making schedules that they sometimes have previously committed to make. is there capacity within the building trades and all the other folks in the county to be able to get this done in a timely fashion?
So maybe I can speak to the AV part first if I can.
Well, a AV part,
Yeah,
for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
all of it.
but on the AV side, one of our key components of the bid is to make sure that people, what's the lead time? And the other thing that we are building into it, because full transparency here, some of the equipment being manufactured is a huge concern, okay? And
Some of
so,
it may be stuck in a container ship outside of Long Beach right now.
yeah, so what we're doing is once we've identified, assuming we go forward with this, once we identify a vendor, we're going to sit down with them and look at the long lead time items and come up with a contingency plan. In other words, Steve here talked about, these touch panels, everything turning on. If, for example, those devices are not available, there may be a remote control done at first. There's other things that we can do. So that the good thing is we have a great engineer that can speak to all those things. Maybe there's a piece of gear that we take out that we got to save and use for a short time. Again, that will all become illustrated as we go through this process. But I would love to tell you that this is going to be easy, that everything's going to show up, and it may, but we're probably going to have to be creative on some things that we don't know yet. We're aware of that. We're planning on it, on doing everything we can to make sure this goes as well as it possibly can, knowing that we can't install equipment that doesn't exist.
Right.
So I'm sorry I took.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And then on the building side, that was one of the key factors when we chose and made our recommendation to the board for Stenco to be the general contractor. It wasn't just the strength of Stenco itself, but the subcontractors that they had on their list. And the vetting of those subcontractors were crucial to us to have the assurances that they were going to be committed with the right resources at the right time. And our first real challenge against that is that when we asked them to accelerate the start date from mid-December to November 8th, and Stenco did a great job. Would you agree, CB, with that? Yeah, they did a great job of getting the subcontractors in line to accelerate it by 6 weeks, essentially. And they all got right in line with that, which was crucial for us.
In terms of the critical path of this, does the AV come first and then the other improvements, or is it much more complicated?
So it's actually both. So the channeling, you saw that channeling and the boxes, we need to get after that right away.
Right.
That's part of the dirty work that needs to get done so that we can get everything else done so we can turn this building back largely to a clean state. But for wrap-up work by May 1st is now our new target, so that Steve and Todd and company can come with their contractors to install all the technology equipment during the month of May, and then in the month of June, it's the commissioning of all that technology, which is going to be significant, and training the staff during the month of June, so that on July 1st, if all goes as planned, it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, exactly. From your mouth to God's ear. This floor, is it concrete? What is this floor?
Concrete.
So somebody's going to have to come in with a jackhammer and actually...
Trench it with saws and trench it, yep.
Okay. Other question, do our contracts have any penalty provisions for delay?
They do. We put those in, and so there are daily penalties that we put in for every day that they're passed, as long as it's their fault and not our fault.
Okay,
With that.
typical. Thanks.
Well, that's another reason why we're on such a fast track for this. It's not even the construction part, is we want to get the contractors to order the equipment.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So,
Diana, your turn.
Oh, thank you. Good questions. Two of them. One, maybe far-fetched, but I think when we go into the classrooms, the lights come on automatically, right? Do they?
We have the sensors. Yeah, we have
Sensors,
lighting
right,
Sensors,
okay.
yeah.
What about the walls? You touch the walls and the lights come on? If the lights don't come on by the sensor?
For
classrooms.
For the display screens,
For
trustee?
classrooms.
Classrooms.
Overhead lighting? What are you speaking of?
No, I know that the classrooms have the automatic lights that come on, the sensors. I'm just talking about the wall. Sometimes you can touch the wall. You're talking about sustainability. Maybe the sensors go out. Could they just touch the wall for the light to come on?
And now you're talking Star Trek.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
It's all a, sorry.
Please go ahead.
It's a restaurant system, it's all lighting controlled at a new lighting standards.
Uh-huh,
So there's not only occupancy detector, there's daylight harvesting.
great.
Like the classrooms that have windows and stuff, it'll automatically kind of dim down and catch that natural light.
See, I
And
know
there is
I'm not
just your
far off.
typical switch on wall.
Thank you,
So you have
Steve.
all three. items.
Hey, see?
You've been around, but you're up to date.
I've been around. And then my last question, where is the board going to go? What classroom? Us? Where we going
Oh,
to
while
go?
we're gone?
For our meetings?
We're going to Rose's home.
That's right.
And Rose has wine.
Oh, yes.
I too. Vanessa?
We're going to hold our meetings at the Student Center at EMU. They're going to graciously let us use their facilities. No charge. So
That's going to be interesting, okay.
Yeah.
this will have to.
And parking?
We're working on that.
Okay.
The shuttle.
Ruth, you have a question?
Well, I just had a question about the lighting. If you walk in, the lights go on, but if, in my experience, when all the students are taking an exam and it's very quiet
Oh,
and
they do
still,
go
the
on.
lights go off.
Right.
So do we have to wave our hands
That's
to keep the lights on?
No, there's override controls and the.
Okay.
I know what you're talking, those are kind of old generation sensors.
Oh, see, I'm
Yeah,
old.
you know, you're old, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
old.
we could, that will also be
I'll
integrated.
remember your name.
CB3,
I got you.
CS3.
Trey.
Bill Johnson.
That's it. It's quick.
Okay.
Steve, did you have something to add?
Well, those can be integrated into those scheduling panels. So the lighting, when
Oh, yeah.
that room comes on,
Oh, that's good, yeah.
the lights come on. But,
It's kind of like the Academy Awards, when it goes off, you know you're supposed to
right,
leave.
yeah, leave the stage.
Now, I do have another. Have you picked out colors? Because I'm looking at the schematics over
Oh,
here.
no, you're not going to comment on the colors.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, that,
Yeah.
we shared those with the board before.
yeah, but,
They're right there.
yeah.
She wants lime green. I know she wants.
No.
Some orange and yellows and something bright.
So we have, so the finishes, we've gone through a thorough vetting process, and those are on order.
Yes, they are.
But you know what? That column in there, it can be bright orange.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever
Good
you
answer.
want.
And that'll make your outfits look better, walking in that dark, dark makes us look better.
Yeah, it's classy look.
And these finishes were all presented to us out here in the
Yes,
lobby a
they
couple of
were.
months ago, right?
Yes.
Yes, they
Yep.
do.
And you said yes.
Did I? I forget.
It's going to be beautiful. It is.
Thank you. I trust your judgment.
Any other trustee questions? Anybody have further?
Then I would just wrap up our ML conversation back on this slide. So once again, the motion that we had our first reading at our last meeting was to request the board for a 3.5 million increase to the ML project. You see here 3.3 million of it.
Can I
We-
be stupid here and say it adds up to 2.5?
I wish it did, but it does not. So we have the 1.7, the 800,000 for network, and then 800,000 for building infrastructure.
Oh, that's what.
So the building infrastructure, as part of the original motion, we said, please increase by 3.5. Of that 3.5, 1 million was going to go to our general contractor, Stenco. An increase in their contract. 800,000 you see here as being the building infrastructure, the channeling in the floors, the dropping of the power in data boxes where they need to be. We also asked for an extra 200,000 to the Stenco contract for contingency, because we're adding another 3.5 million in total. So that motion the board has seen, both for the 3.5, of which 1 million for Stenco. What you have not yet seen and what is still being bid out are the AV contracts and the network gear contracts, which are being bid out. And Todd Kruger will be bringing those proposed contracts to support these budget estimates at the next meeting.
And I note that you have decimal point .00. And I think there's an old joke that that's what economists use to show they have a sense of humor.
We have to find our laughs somewhere. So
Yeah, exactly.
just to wrap up that part of our agenda today.
Good. Rose, any further comments?
I think trustee.
Well, I'd just
Oh,
like
Ruth.
to thank you for paying attention to the AV and that kind of thing, because we had not discussed that before. And also, I don't like spending money, as many of you know, but this is our
Public
this is our
facing.
public face. Thank you very much. And a very important one, and has grown enormously, and is a very important space for the community as well as for the college. And we don't want bricks lying on people's heads and people tripping over duct tape. So I would enthusiastically support the increased budget for this building.
Yeah, it looks very thorough.
I believe that Todd and Steve Steve, you don't need to stay up.
Okay.
If you want to hear the rest of us, I'm educated.
That's fine.
Todd, you're welcome to stay
I'll go over there.
anywhere you'd like. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Steve.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, thank you.
I need to talk.
Thanks, Steve.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Next, we go to, the next building will be
Actually,
the
Ruth,
facility.
I have a question.
I have one question that he said was okay to ask. I need permission because I'm so.
Please come forward.
I'm just wondering who is paying Steve's consulting? Is the college paying for that, or is
Yep.
the
Lucian.
Lucian paying for that?
We're paying for it.
Yep, that's part of the 3.5 million.
Okay, so we're paying for that?
We are.
Okay, thank you.
Facilities, building improvements, and Great Lakes Building Addition.
Very good, thank you. So once again, this project has been in the making for a number of years, starting back when David Flowers had presented the need to really address some significant maintenance issues of our maintenance garage building, which over the years has deteriorated in its condition, and its use has been both staff as well as vehicles. So we started on a path of assessing that, and our recommendation today is a project in total worth $4 million. It really is made up of three pieces. One is to expand the Great Lakes Regional Training Center, the GL building, to move and to further add additional space for all of the UA training to now be done in the Great Lakes building, to reconfigure the storage and receiving building so that we can then fully consolidate all of the facilities departments within the SRB building itself. And then lastly, to make some modest improvements to the maintenance garage so that it can be a storage of equipment, both for our iron workers folks and UA folks, which have storage in the storage and receiving building, as well as be a storage for vehicles and maintenance of vehicles. So you can see that adds up to $4 million. Now, as we work through this project with our UA partner, they have agreed, and their board has approved funding of $1.4 million towards the GL expansion. And how we arrived at the 1.4 is that we had studied what it would have cost to accommodate their increased storage needs in the storage and receiving building. So if they stayed there and we were to move folks out and create space for them and create those labs that they wanted, that was going to cost about $1 million just to do that alone. On top of that, they wanted added storage, in addition to the storage that they have in SRB, and that costs us $400,000. So we've asked them to fund us $1.4 million of the $4 million project, and that WCC funding would be $2.6. The net result of that is that if we had never addressed the needs of the UA and just addressed our own needs as a college, for the maintenance garage and space that facilities needed to address the code issues that we had. We were estimating that it was going to cost much more than that. So this really is a win-win. By expanding the Great Lakes building, moving the UA folks over there, consolidating facilities in SRB, we are getting a win-win both for our trade partners and for the college at actually lower cost, net lower cost to the college, with UA funding 1.4 million. You can see that the schedule for this is really a stair-step schedule. First, we expand the Great Lakes building. Then we move the UA folks over to the new Great Lakes space. That vacates the space in the storage and receiving building. Then we can reconfigure that building, then move the facility staff that are now in the maintenance garage into that building, and then we can finally do the final piece of this this renovation work in the maintenance garage. So it's going to span about a year and a half, of work, but in those 3 phases. As I mentioned, the goals are manyfold with that, and we do think this is a win-win. So where are the 3 areas? So I brought up a map of the campus, and in kind of the shaded green, you can see the maintenance garage in the far left. The maintenance garage is next to the Henry Landau building, which is next to the storage and receiving building, and in front of it's the Damon Flowers building. So the maintenance garage and the SR building are 2 of the 3. And then over on this side of campus, which is attached to the OE building, was the original Great Lakes building. We're talking about an expansion for that. So the Great Lakes building, you see kind of a front-facing view from Huron Drive view, and on the left, and then on the right, where you see those vehicle or storage bay areas there. That's the area that we're talking about actually expanding. So it would be an expansion that will absorb the door area and come out a little bit. And you can see that better when we get to the next slide here. So we're talking about 8,800 square feet of total expansion of the Great Lakes building. It's going to be a 2-floor building. So we're going to put a flex lab, a plumbing lab, and a HVAC lab on the first floor, 2 classrooms on the second floor, and then extra storage that the UA is desiring. The only new space from what they have today would be adding the one new lab, the boiler lab or plumbing lab, and then also the storage up on the second. The rest of it is existing space that they already have in SRB that we're going to bring over. So this is a top view of the Great Lakes building. The shaded area is existing building, and it's a 2-story building for the left half of it, and the other half are high bay labs, where my cursor is there. The white area that have the lines through it, this is the new addition. So you can see it's not a very large addition, 4,400 square feet per floor going up. And on the first floor, it would be the flex lab, the HVAC lab, and the plumbing lab. And we are going to put in a freight elevator because access to the second floor for storage is going to be through a freight elevator. We actually looked at another way to come in at. We're going to build a drive. There's land to the east of the building that rises up, and we were going to leverage that land. But that actually turned out to be much more costly for a number of reasons. So we've opted, in our recommendation to UA is that we go with the freight elevator. And then on the second floor, the 2 classrooms, they have 2 classrooms now in SRB, and I'm being generous with my description of them as classrooms. They're kind of small rooms. They originally were large storage rooms that got turned into classrooms. So so they are going to get legitimate classrooms, out of this as well. And then of course their storage area. So that's the Great Lakes expansion. In the SRB area, this is a floor plan of the total storage and receiving building. Green area is what facilities utilizes today. And then in the white area is where UA is today. The blue is iron worker storage, and then you can see the pink is where the sprinkler fitters staff is now. So in our revised plan, facilities would utilize the entire building. And again, one of the great outcomes is for AVP Whipstock and team, they now have all of their departments under one roof. So from a management perspective, there's just a lot of synergies there for that team. And we estimate this renovation would cost about $800,000. In the maintenance garage, you can see the UA warehouse area and the iron worker storage area. Those two areas combined today are where all of the maintenance and grounds team is today. The staffing team is there actually now. So of course, once the SRB gets renovated, they move out. We can then turn those spaces into storage spaces for both the iron workers and UA. And again, that's a much more modest cost of about $600,000. We were going to have to add on to this building, and it was going to cost us about $2.5 million originally. So we saved a lot of costs by going to this other model for this. So once again, our recommendation is that the board approve establishing a new capital project totaling $4 million. It's made up of those three separate projects: GL expansion, SRB reconfiguration, and maintenance garage improvements. The UA would fund $1.4 million. They already have approval from their board. The UA Training Fund Board has already approved that $1.4 million, and the college funding would be $2.6 million. And that's our project.
Any questions? Ruth?
Is it okay? If we didn't have UA and we're just doing consolidating for ourselves, would it be 2.6 million?
We had estimated, and this was back when Damon Flowers was here. He had done some really good studies on this. We were going to have to add about a 9,600 square foot addition to the maintenance garage and improve the maintenance garage. And we were going to have to address some code issues in the storage and receiving building. So that project was well north of $3 million in total.
And my other question is, sort of coming out of the discussion for this building, are we, do we have some future plans for, I mean, it seems as though UA and sprinkler and iron continue to grow. So if they need more space, are we ready for that? Are we sort of planning ahead for that? When we need that space for them?
That's a really good question, Trustee Hatcher. So for instance, back on the slide of the maintenance garage, we worked hard to make sure we had a slightly bigger footprint for ironworkers for storage. We met with Ed Abbott and team. We walked the space. We understood his needs. And he thinks that this blue box here, which is a bigger space, gives him the room for growth that he needs.
Okay.
For the UA, we're actually doubling the size of their storage space, which they believe is very significant, and the training needs they feel gives them the room for growth that they need as well.
And the sprinklers don't need much space?
Sprinkler filters, we are looking at 3 different spaces for them. They're currently studying what their space needs are. They're assessing that as we speak.
So we might have something more to do for them.
That's already built into this project. Some minor renovation of a space for them, either in Damon Flowers building is one of the areas. But we have facilities team there now. There are some ready-made spaces across campus that could fit them nicely at very low cost.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Again, I should know the answer to this question, so, but in terms of revenues, what do our relationships with these partners bring in, generally speaking?
So the gross revenue for the UA is close to $4 million gross with the UA. Net, it's around $300,000 to $400,000 net of our costs. But that doesn't really reflect the value of the Great Lakes Training Center and the use of that building, and it does not reflect the greater Ann Arbor area value that those relationships bring.
Well, plus it gives us a national exposure with the labor movement in general. So,
Right. And then iron workers, it's net about 200,000 a year, but the sprinkler fitters is very significant for us. The team, I know that President Blanca's mentioned Marilyn Dunham and the work that she's done, it's very, very significant net revenue growth for the college as we continue to serve their members.
Thank you for asking that question.
Any other questions on the Great Lakes and facilities?
And all of our partners are happy with these changes.
They are. They're very, in fact, CB, I know you met with, the UA leadership is in town today, and you gave an
We've been meeting
overview
probably
to
the
them.
last 6 months, UA specifically. That's the more detailed design on all the spaces, so they're very happy, and the whole group is actually here today, so I gave them.
Thank you. Great.
I know the iron workers very happy, yours is more just storage space.
Good, we're good. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Rose.
Oh, this is a real exciting discussion I'm looking forward to on the capital outlay request. That's just going to be my drum roll for Bill, but we have 3 options to take a look at. Okay, ready?
Very good. Thank you, President Blanca. So just a little bit of history. The board had approved originally back in 2018 that we submit a capital outlay request for the Advanced Transportation Center. Originally, it was a $4 million project that once we did the first round of design, it grew to $5.7 million.
That because Rose started asking for more stuff?
Actually, this is largely reflective of the escalation costs of construction during this time period. It's been amazing, even pre-COVID, but certainly during COVID, but even pre-COVID, it was going up. So 4 million grew to 5.7. That's what the state really approved, was a 5.7 million project of 2 million of state funding. When we finished up our designs in late 2019, that project grew to 7.9 million. We had come to the board and briefed the board on the reasons for that. We legislatively had to go back to the state legislators and seek legislative approval of the 7.9, so the increased cost without any added state funding. So the college was on the hook for roughly 6 million on an 8 million project. 6 million was college money. That was in March of 20, and then COVID happened. So we pressed the pause button as a college for a lot of very important reasons. That was a 16,000 square foot building, 6 classrooms, to really address the autonomous vehicle and mobility industry, and all of our curriculum that went to supporting those skilled trades that we're going to be serving those industries. Just a review of where that building was going to go. It was up on the berm, kind of in front of the OE building and next to, just on the east side of the bus loop. A real high-tech building that really spoke to the autonomous vehicle and mobility and technology. We wanted this to be something that would help the community to understand at first impressions about the college's engagement around these industries and the fact that we are a significant contributor towards those industries' needs from a training, teaching, and engagement perspective. Some views of the building from the inside. This is kind of the east side of the building. You can kind of see very flexible spaces. So for instance, these glass walls all opened up. So if we wanted to bring in K through 12 students and get them engaged around autonomous vehicles and mobility, because we were going to have our Mach-E Mustang was going to be in there and being part of our curriculum for cyber and vehicle to the vehicle. You can bring in large groups and get them engaged around these and kind of get a sense of what that building design looked like. On the front of it, we had a conference center that our name would light up at night. Again, this building was on the edge of Huron Drive, so you're driving by. The building has a strong presence. The college's brand, its name, has a strong presence as you drove by.
You're using the past tense?
Well, you'll see why.
That was our vision.
I was really psyched about this building.
Me too.
It looks like it could be on North Campus, you know, it's like pretty cool.
So that's a really great thought. We are going to nurture that thought some more. So,
Okay, good.
so then, a lot has happened since we had first envisioned the ATC and those sets of industries. And what's really come about is the next round of evolution around the electrification of vehicles and all the things go with vehicle electrification. And beyond that, the data that's coming out of these cars and going into these cars that tie into the broader smart cities and connected communities. And there's a whole set of industries that are leveraged off of the Internet of Things, of IoT, and I know we've gone through this with the board in the past, that really help to power cities and buildings and utility operations, the electrification of vehicles around battery development, battery production, the maintenance of batteries, the market use, the aftermarket use of batteries. There's a whole set of industries that, frankly, at the end of the day, that community colleges, like always, have to serve those roles. We have to provide curriculum and trainings that are going to service those industries' needs. And that really has spurred our thinking this past year. So as the header of this slide says, really to reimagine our ATC, there are a lot of nuggets of that ATC building that are absolutely relevant today into the future. But there are some new things that we think we need to add to it. So we, as President Blanc said, we really looked at three different options. The first is stay with our original request, stay with that same building size. And so we worked with our architects, Newman Smith, who had worked with us on that original design, to say, what could we change within the building? Not change the outside, not change the size of it. We've got basically 6 classrooms and some flexible space. What are the highest priority things now? And so what we said is, still highest priority there was a cluster of 3 classrooms, the vehicle bay in the middle, with cyber on one side and vehicle to vehicle, all the control systems and the data that go with that. Those 3 as a cluster needed to stay in the building. So we moved that in this design down to the lower level, but still a very core part of it. And then up on the top, we then added things like a telecommunications lab, an innovation center that really can talk and speak towards data analytics. It can speak towards, the use of data to help drive the decision making, that would go on around activities within a city, with activities within a community, and how the data of a car and the data in power plants and the data of electric usage and the data of traffic in a city, all those things interrelate with one another. In this innovation center, things that we can only start to talk about, much less imagine in detail, but you need a space for that collaboration to go on. And we said, that's the parts that we are missing. Now, what we couldn't fit in here, but we said, that's okay, we'll figure that out later, but what we couldn't fit in here is in that item E, right? The battery labs that we need to have. So the whole electrification side, the electrical side. So with those sensors, with that data analytics, there's a whole electrical side to this. And frankly, the real collaboration space you need with business and industry and the community. But we said, all right, what could that look like? And so we worked with our architects to come up with the best reuse of that ATC to take the most important things out of ATC, cyber, vehicle bay, and then add to it the telecommunications. And that's what these two floor plans look like. It would still look real high tech. It would have those great glass, elements to it, and it worked. Okay, here's the bad news.
Why did I know this was coming?
Our 8 million project rose to 16 million. Now, admittedly, a significant portion of that increase would have happened regardless. A lot has happened in the last 2 years in terms of construction costs, and even the cost
This is a
estimate.
100% increase?
This is a 100% increase. That's exactly right. We were pricing this three years ago at about $500 a square foot. The going rate for this kind of building, with this kind of flexible space, with that technology in the building, is now closer to $1,000 a square foot. And our cost estimator validated that with 3 other cost estimators. Because when they first did it, they said, no, this can't be true. and they validated, said, yep, no, you're right. You're in the ballpark. It's about $1,000 a square foot.
A square foot is this big? 1,000?
Yep, 1,000. So that's, but that, we wanted to prove that out, that if we wanted to retool the ATC to smart cities the best we could and not increase the footprint, that's what that would cost. That's option 1. Option 2, we had fun. We said, let's not limit ourselves to space. Let's build the building that we think we need. You got to have fun.
You gotta have fun. What's the point of it?
But if you're going to vision, let's vision where these sets of industries are going, and give ourselves enough space in this building.
How much did the Gunder Myron building cost?
Boy,
I think it was like $8 million. And maybe.
that was it.
Now, of course, that was 20 years ago, but still.
It's
And it was a library. Okay.
just 5 years ago, $300 a square foot would have been a pretty rich building design. I'm looking at an expert here,
Yeah.
Craig and CCCB, right? Just five years ago,
300 a square foot gets you maybe a shelter.
right?
The new university building on Huron and State, the new dorm and
Oh, yeah.
classroom complex, $440 a foot to build that, and that was astronomical at the time.
That was with Western, right? Was it Western or Central is built basically a student center for about 600 square foot.
Yeah.
Almost 200 million.
So we said, you know what, let's make sure that we capture all the key elements. So in addition to what we had in our reimagined ATC, we added back the electrical labs. We added back the collaboration space that we really needed more of to really support these sets of industries as they start to come alive and are trying to define these various elements, and a need to be flexible. So the building size grew by 10,000 square feet, 16,000 to 26, and the cost goes up to about $30 million.
Does any of this CARES Act money or anything come into play for any of this?
It is not CARES Act, but if we were to submit a new capital outlay project, the state would potentially fund up to 50% of that. And I think that's a really important thought, that as we get to our third option, that we'd like to go back and visit that thought.
You're setting us up for the third option.
No, actually, it's not even a setup, but it's gonna seem like it.
But it's not.
We really, truly, the thinking process, I mean, it really was like this, exactly how he's explaining it. And then the third option just came about,
That's the
so.
way I go shopping, so it's okay, yeah?
I just want you to know, it does seem like a setup, but it's not. It's really just how we thought through
We
this.
started out buying a nice Chevy, and now we're up to a Bentley, so let's see.
Yeah.
Now we're getting up to a Learjet, so, yeah.
So let's,
But don't forget, for that little building, I'm sorry, I'm gonna take your
please.
steam away. I just have to just say this part.
go ahead, do it.
For that little building, you were just gonna get $2 million. And if we have to still spend it, it's a $16 million project, you only get 2. For this building, you get $15 million, and for the other 15, you know what I'm saying, you get a better deal, right? Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely right.
Now
Let's,
Like now see option
I just
3.
feel like somehow I'm paying for this. I just-
No, wait, option 3, wait.
well,
Okay.
just prior to going to option 3, so what does
Oh.
this new building look like? The site plan, it's still on the same site. It's still right in front of OE up on that berm. We kind of rounded the back end of it, which was a flat line to capture the additional space that we needed. The floor plans kind of follow accordingly. That top level has the telecommunications lab. It has the innovation spaces that we need. It has the flex spaces that
What's the
we need.
twinkly little circle?
So the other thing that we want to do, it's called the ring of data. It doesn't have to be a ring. But if you're trying to get community and stakeholders to start to engage around the use of data, that we thought it was important in this building to have a space where we can get data feeds across our campus, certainly within this new building, across our campus. We also would like, there's a lot of other data feeds, public data feeds from the city and the county and others. And so if we could start to find a place to aggregate the presentation of this data and then start to relate this data to one another as an experience, you start
Okay,
to
you've
begin to
completely
understand
lost
smart cities.
You've completely lost me.
You know, Ann Arbor is working to become a smart
You did?
city.
Okay.
You know, Ann Arbor is working to become a smart city, so.
Are these
And-
like monitors or? is this-
Monitors.
They're
Thank you.
monitors.
It just monitor. It doesn't have to be a ring, but that's just how fancy a way of characterizing.
I thought that would be where you put the Ford Mach-E, you know, turning around with Vanna White there or something like that.
That's in the lower level.
Okay.
But we do have a spot for that, so. And in the lower level, we do have the vehicle bay there, you know, as well as electrical labs. So this,
Wait, what I really love about this is, you know how one of the things that we do not have enough of here is large space area. That on that upper level, we can either have small innovation labs where we can have either, you know, it could be instructional space, it could be community space, it could be another thing that we put on the grid, like this building. We could actually remove all those walls and have another large space venue if the college wanted. I mean, that we really
Great for
need that.
cocktail parties.
Yeah, it would be, it would be. So-
Weddings. bar
Weddings,
mitzvahs.
we'll try all that. Okay, and we got the circle, that could be the,
How much of the lower level is at grade, Bill?
the entire lower level is at grade. In fact, you can see it, Trustee Milliken, you can see on this rendering here, that lower level is right at grade with the bus loop there. Yeah, so this gives you a sense, once again, it presents and projects the image of the best that we can of technology, of autonomous vehicles, mobility, and smart cities. This is looking from towards the SC. You walk out of the SC to the top where the bus loop is.
Looks a lot like that Ford Robotics Center on North Campus, actually.
It gives you a sense, and this is from the parking lot side now, which a lot of visitors would come in on the, kind of, this is the east side of the building where you would come in here. So now we move on to option 3, and option 3 is, you know, with the advent of COVID and how our students are starting to respond to distance learning versus on campus, it really is incumbent upon us to reassess in the long term the utilization of our campus space in large. And our initial assessment is there's going to be the potential for capacity to be repurposed as we better understand how students are demanding the use of space on campus. And so with that thought, we said, okay, maybe another approach, option 3, would be to add a smaller addition, so not add a 26,000 square foot addition or 26,000 new building, add a smaller addition onto OE. This depicts about a 10,000 square foot addition onto kind of the main lobby of OE, and then to repurpose a portion, a small portion of OE. We don't really know which programs would be impacted. We need to think all the way through that. But the notion is we should be able to repurpose a small portion of OE, and when you cobble that space along with this 10,000 square foot addition, you may be able to accomplish the same Smart Cities Innovation Center goal without having to build a whole new building. Kind of leverage the infrastructure of the OE building as well. You have restrooms, you have a heating and cooling system, you have a lot of the building infrastructure already there for you to kind of plug into, and then that you would be able to bring the total cost down as a third option.
Is it, but if you did that, would that still be enough room for the cars and the labs and
Yes.
everything that you're talking about
Yes.
before?
Yeah. This particular location, what's kind of neat about this is that if you remember what that OV looks like, kind of the porch steps up. In fact, you can kind of see it kind of in the middle of that blue box. It steps up to the porch of OE. So you have the makings of a 2-level addition just by kind of taking that blue segment and attaching it to it. So you could add, your 10,000 square foot there and leverage a little bit of the OE space. There's a very large lobby, about a 2,000 square foot lobby there now that you'll be able to leverage and potentially go back just a little bit more and have plenty of room then for basically nine classrooms. So each classroom in the new building is about 1,000 square feet, and we have nine of those. So you really need about 9,000 square feet of dedicated classroom space, plus your distribution halls and things like that. So we're fairly confident with about a 10,000 square foot addition, plus to repurpose a small portion of existing OE space, that we will be able to accomplish all of the same goals.
We're not going to have the glass front.
We would.
Maybe.
That's right. We have not, this is just an idea. We haven't flushed out this idea, but I'm very confident that we would be able to get the front of that building to look like that, or maybe even something back to the original building here. There's not a doubt in my mind that we couldn't take some of these concepts and that's what the new addition looks like. Something very much like this.
I like that idea. One of the things I really like about that building is it's like a showcase, where you showcase that Mustang. So even if you're standing outside, you can see it, and it's beautiful, and you can see all the technology happening, and you want to come in and do it, So I love the showcase aspect of that building.
Just to be the skunk at the garden party a little bit here, I am slightly concerned about the, for want of a better word, ostentatious quality of this building for our stakeholders. I know, I always love when I go and visit law firms, large law firms in other cities, to go and see the beautiful, conference rooms and the lovely, but then there's a part of me that says, I'm paying for this, and not to say that our students shouldn't have the best, my dad was a big advocate for saying, the students who come here should feel that they have the same facilities that the University of Michigan has. We should not feel like second-class citizens. But there is a level of ostentation that starts making me slightly nervous. So, and I don't know how you factor that in here, but I think, I don't want this to be such a palace that somebody says, I'm paying for this with millage dollars, and feel like this is overboard, but.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, that's a good discussion, and I understand what you're saying, but I also, on the other hand, is that we are already in the 21st century, and our buildings are like you said earlier, they're old. When we go in onto campuses to other new
Well,
colleges.
you've visited more of them than I have, I get that.
Right.
Yeah.
They are way, aesthetically, they are way ahead of us.
Okay.
We look like we back in the 60s and 70s.
Right, right.
Compared to what, I've been all over.
Right.
And last week, when Dr. Rose and I went up to Benton Harbor, to Lake Michigan, it proved to me, we can do it here in Michigan. We need to start uplifting what we look like. I mean, that's.
You're just proving I'm an old man. You're just
But-
proving again I'm an old man.
Yeah.
What can I say?
I know. I can see too, old man.
Maybe what we need is some ivy, you know?
Yeah.
On the old building.
Have it grow up on the
That would help.
sides.
Yeah.
Actually, these building people hate ivy. They hate it.
I know. I do have a substantive question, I think, except for ivy. I guess my concern with the first two and even the third is in terms of our students' programs. In other words, I see the community benefit for the Morris Lawrence building. I'm not sure that our role as a community college, maybe, I'm old, okay, is in terms of this, how much of the smart cities program is relevant to our degree structure and program for our students. In other words, is this something, of the first two particularly, something Wayne State should be doing or Michigan State should be doing? We are not a four-year school. So I don't know what programs those first two fit into that we offer or.
Plan to offer.
Or plan to offer. I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Ruth.
No, that's a very good question, but as we have heard they're requiring technicians now. We don't, the goal isn't for more engineers. These engineers work with technicians. They want data technicians, fiber optic technicians, mobility technicians. That's what we do. We train people in those certificates, in those degrees, and that's where, telecommunications, it's that technician, and maybe not only for the associate degree, but maybe it's for the person who's already working.
Yeah.
And they decide they need to come back to get that capstone, maybe they already have their, like we have what percent, Linda, already have their bachelor's degree that come here? Huh, what? 16%. So, it could be
I guess I'd like
someone
to
else.
see some data as to what these technicians, how they're being hired and what credentials they have. Because technicians can often have bachelor's degrees.
Right.
And we're not offering that yet. So I don't know if that's what this is leaning toward, or whether we're training pre-technicians for the four-year degree. I don't have a sense of what that.
The career path is.
What that career
Sure.
path is.
What we're training people for is a career path. So, and it is working with industry. I mean, involving them in this. Some of these jobs, we don't even know what they are. No one does. I mean, they're being evolved every day. And that's how we need to be evolving every day. Did you want to add anything, Kim?
I will say that Dr. Blanca's point about the technician jobs, when we think of those technician jobs where we hear conversations, just general conversations about skills, those are associate degrees, those are what we do. So you hear a lot more people talk about what Google or Amazon or what different companies are doing to start their own training. We want to be leading that, in regards to our students not having to go to Google or Amazon to get trained or whatever company, but to get trained here. And so when we talk about technician jobs, that's what we do. Those are skills that people leave here and apply to a job. And that's the vision of converging all of that together in this building so the students can apply that in a more modern way, which they're doing now in different programs, but seeing those things come together.
I guess I'd just like to see a little more data about the career path. In other words, we certainly should be preparing students for those technician jobs and bachelor's degrees and whatever else they want to do. But I'm not sure, I mean, I'm not sure about the number of students. I'm not sure whether, I know it's very expensive to train people to do this. And I'm not sure what the career path is for a certificate or associate's degree in these very technical fields. And I just need to see that.
Well, and we, in our executive summary, it really will address what you're asking for, I believe. But the question I always ask is, I always ask this when I speak to anyone, is define student for me. What's a student? Is a student somebody who comes here for an associate degree? Is a student a member of the community that comes here to get us, to upgrade a skill? Is
Is a student a UA
here-
member?
What is a student?
Yeah.
I mean, and we are here for students, you know, so I look at that term, you know, what is a student? But to your question is well taken, and it does explain it in our executive summary, but it might not be as definitive as you would hope it would be, because some of these jobs are being created right now.
Of course.
So we only know what we know, but that's all we know. I don't know.
Well, you've got Ford Motor Company completing the Michigan Central Terminal Building, 500,000 square feet in its new automation center. And they're going to be scrambling to hire people to take on the roles that they want there. Governor Whitmer is banding together other Great Lakes states governors to put together an electric grid to support electric vehicle operation. So there are a lot of, right on the fringe, there are a lot of opportunities that could call on these skills to train them here.
Yeah, I think, but what Ruth is saying, I mean, it's one thing to say, and I, you know, I'm all for this thinking, but the thing that I think I'm responding to, and she may be responding to, if I might say, is the concept that if we build it, they will come, is slightly a concern, in that, you know, I think that we need, if we build it, we need to figure out how we're going to utilize it to further our mission too.
Build it and sell it. To build it and sell it.
Exactly, and so, you know, the question is, are we thinking along those lines? Because I don't want this simply to be something that people, well, you know, I say that. I mean, when you were saying, I was thinking, is a UA member a student? Are the partners that we have, that Marilyn Dunham and all her people are looking at, are they students? I mean, they kind of are, you know, and I can see that this could lead to some pretty important partnerships, but at the same time, I think I share Ruth's concern that how are we dealing with the kid from Ipsy or from, you know, from Dexter, who, you know, comes here and wants a career? Where do they get, what classroom are they going to sit in there, you know?
Diana?
Yeah, and I feel like when Ford came out the other week about building electric trucks in those 3 states that I mentioned in the last board meeting, he said, I'm stepping out. I don't know how this is going to work, but he's investing billions of dollars. They don't know what's going to be out here, but they're stepping out on that ledge with the purpose of feeling that this is going to work because this is the part of the future.
But here's the difference. They have a market capitalization of billions of dollars, and we are a small community college.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but it's still, my concept in this is that they both are the same, because we are going to be stepping out on that ledge, because we don't know. Just like when this was an apple orchard, and people stepped out on the ledge to go ahead and say we need to have this, you know, a building to teach education. That's all I'm coming. I'm just looking at the visualization of what is it that we do? Do we do something or we don't do anything? So,
Dr. Blanca?
Yes, there's really good news. There's really good news here. The good news is, if we submit this, one of these three, as a capital outlay grant or in our request, we're really not agreeing to this. You know, the board's not approving the project, you're just kind of approving the concept. So, just like the ATC, when you approved it 3 years ago, we still haven't built it. And just like the ATC, we had time to talk about it. And so, if we could just submit one of these three to the state, well, the first one that's already been submitted, so, but if we could submit one, you know, maybe this one to the state, and let's say they give it to us, which they, according to Bill, one of the things they do is rank it higher if you, you know, rather than a new building, if you're adding on to a building. So let's just say they give it to us. We still have time to talk about it, and we don't have to do it at all. You know, we might say, it might happen, we might come back and say, yeah, we don't need it, or there's still more conversations that we can have with it. So it's not like it's a done deal.
And I'm not
At all.
saying I'm opposed to
it's
it, I just think these are things as a
Sure,
board
no,
we just
good.
discussed right now.
we need to think about.
Ruth?
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to thinking of the future. I'm not a Luddite. Well, most of the time I'm not a Luddite. I am an English teacher.
You are.
And, but in terms of going to the edge of the ledge, I see lots of ledges. I see a ledge in nursing. Where's our commitment to this national crisis in nursing? Where's our commitment to the national crisis in Afghanistan's refugees that are coming to Washtenaw County? There are lots of ledges. This is just one of them. And I would much rather see a balance in terms of ledges. I'm much more, in many ways, the nursing and the Afghanistan people is a priority for me. And this is very nice, but I don't see the balance. So that's what I'm looking for.
Okay. And that's a fair assumption, you know, what you're saying, because those are real. And this isn't real. I mean, it's a concept on paper.
Right. But we've got real problems with nursing. We have
Right.
real problems with refugees.
Right.
And especially in Washtenaw County. And, you know, we can let Jewish social services do it all. But it seems to me we had a huge responsibility with Vietnam refugees during the Vietnam War. We've done, you know, I don't know what we're doing for the others. So, you know, there are lots of ledges. That was my point.
If we take this proposal forward to the Capitol for funding, how big is the line at the door?
I would say each year they get about 12 to 15 requests from the community colleges. And generally speaking, given limitations of funding, they'll only approve just for planning. That doesn't mean that they've approved it in full, but just for planning, maybe 4 to 5 of them. So usually just the top 4 or 5 get a planning authorization. And we would be asking that we submit one of these options as a planning authorization. Submit it with the hopes of planning. To President Blanca's point, in the ensuing months, we have a lot of time to assess what the key ingredients of this building should be, what its curriculum need to be in these buildings, to further refine that so that we're ready to go when and if we get the planning authorization, that we can do that detailed work, which would happen, that would come about, that planning authorization, next spring or summer. So it wouldn't be till next summer that if we got the thumbs up to go do some detailed planning, that we would spend the next year just doing that work. So this is a two-year kind of assessment, detailed assessment process.
Bill, this slide,
Pardon me?
this slide
Yeah.
that you're showing me right now, okay. Let me just, there's a couple of disingenuous things here,
Oh.
okay? One is, the original ATC we were talking about was $8 million. Okay, now you're saying the original request is 16 million. In fact, we've got a 100% increase over that cost. Then you've doubled it to get to 30 million for the new building, to bring me down to the 20 million, which by my estimation is $12 million more than we heard about 5 years ago or 2 years ago. So, I mean, I just, I think this is a lot of money. And I'm not to say, that's not to say that, if the state gives us $10 million, we're still $8 million over what we were talking about out-of-pocket spending to begin with, which we maybe can afford. You guys are the ones that can tell me that. But just, I do feel that this slide is a little bit disingenuous.
Well, go ahead.
It's just a statement of the facts as we know them today, right?
And we're not,
I do.
yeah, and we're really not trying to be disingenuous,
Yeah.
seriously. Because, we don't want to take a risk either.
No, I get it.
But the thing is, we have an opportunity right now. Last year, we took the opportunity and we submitted a $19.2 million capital outlay project to redo the Student Success Building into the Center for Success. Remember? They didn't grant us that because they didn't feel, we didn't meet all the metrics. So we didn't get it. Okay. All I'm saying is, I don't want to walk away and not have something on the table. This could be a golden opportunity for us, and maybe we walk away from it. But if they're saying he put something in now, I just don't want to leave a potential opportunity on the table. That's all I'm saying. And this really does prepare people for the workforce, as all the indicators are saying where it's going right now.
All I'm saying
all I
is that this is based on, maybe I'm wrong and maybe my memory
No.
is getting old but this building project would, I think, be one of the most expensive in terms of just real dollars that we've ever undertaken. Am I wrong?
I don't know what the original cost is, but a
if we
$20 million
adjusted Morris
building.
Lawrence and a lot of these tonight to $2,021, maybe. But just in terms of dollars, this is the most expensive thing I think I've ever been asked to approve.
No, think about, just think about.
Don't think about it?
No, think about, not approve, think about.
I know, this is the most expensive thing I've been asked to think about. Which is fine, and it may be, I like expensive cars, Bill likes expensive cars. We're not above indulging ourselves, but I just want for people to know, this is just.
Maybe I could just step in to put it in context. I think our total original cost of all our buildings and our equipment is probably $140 million. If you were to put that in today's dollars, because we do it each year, it's about $357 million it's in the capital outlay report. $357 million is our estimate, what it would cost to replace what we have today. So this is $20 million as compared to $360 million of what we have today.
God, you're good.
He's good at it. He's good at it. But, Ann, may I say,
Please.
one more thing, thank you.
Yes.
So maybe it's not gonna be this much money. Perhaps once we spend more time and we analyze it, we find out, oh gee, it's not gonna be a $20 million project.
This is what my father always told my
It's gonna
mother when he
be-
built a new house. He always said,
Ten-
maybe it's not going to be, and it always ended up being more.
It could end up being it could end up being a $15 million project. And the state doesn't give us the 10 million, they say, okay, we're only gonna give you 7, and we only send.
You're telling me to dream big.
What?
You're telling us to dream big.
Yeah,
And we don't have to commit to anything this year.
nothing at all.
I understand. I'm just saying that but from a fiduciary perspective, I look at this and these numbers are an order of magnitude higher than what
They
they
are.
were 2 years ago. And I just want everybody, I'm sure everybody
We
can
feel the
add, and
pain.
we're all smart
I
people, but
understand.
that's my one trustee's reaction to this.
And
I want you guys to
pandemic-
really, really think this, run it to ground, respond to what Ruth is saying. I You really want people.
I want to get a new car, but now it's over $40-some thousand.
There you go.
Well, you can't get it anyway.
Anyway,
And if you do, it won't have like a radio because they can't get the chip.
and a moonroof. I got to have my moonroof.
Anyway, I appreciate everybody's brainstorming here. I mean, I think it's great, but it's just, you know.
I guess we just have to realize the pandemic has jumped. I got to call the water department. When I get home today, they gave me, somehow or another, I got a bill that wasn't supposed to come to me, but it came to me, of what last year, 2020 amount was, and this year, of what this year amount is for now, 21, is double.
Oh, yeah, no,
Double.
I get it.
Wow.
At the same time last year. Double. And I'm like, I can't believe this. I'm up in arms, but I didn't realize this pandemic has just made people go cross crazy. Everything is this, and this.
Any more discussion about Bill's building?
Okay, just so I can go on record, this is Bill's building. This is
The Johnson Innovation Center.
Right.
One last slide. Trustee Hatcher at the last board meeting had asked, and this is, I'm going to reel us back to the $3.5 million for Morris Lawrence and $2.6 million for the Great Lakes and facilities. Where is that funding coming from? I'm going to turn this over to Terry Barnes to walk through with us.
Right. I think the essence of Trustee Hatcher's question was, what is the affordability of these two projects out of the general fund? So what you see here is what we have in our general fund that isn't allocated to anything else. So for example, we already have $10 million allocated to the Morris Lawrence building. That money is already set aside. It is not in this $43 million. This is what we have available. So in terms of the two projects presented today, the GL SRB/maintenance garage, the MLB building for the additional technology, that would take that $43.6 million down to $37.5 million. The other $26 million, we keep that in long-term investments. That's really our 3-month cushion, 3 months of working capital that we keep, which would still leave us with a daily usable balance of $11.5 million, even after paying for these two projects. So it is well within our means to pay for these two projects.
Does this include, I'm sorry, does this include investment projections or not? This is cash.
This is cash, right? This is not, there's no projection of any return of investment in these numbers.
Yeah, I know, that's why I asked. And, okay. The 26 is 3 months of salaries and operating expenses.
It would be 3 months of all the expenditures of the college, approximately. Which is a pretty safe amount to have. I mean, I would always like to have more, but that's a pretty safe amount to have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions of Terry?
That concludes our materials today.
Can I?
Dr. Blanca?
So will you consider? Will you just consider?
Sure. I'll consider
this
anything.
Innovation Center, knowing that it's just a concept, which we may not even, it may not come to fruition, but it may. Would you consider
Hey,
that?
speaking for myself, I'm happy to consider it. I just think it's important that we recognize the
Yes.
magnitude of the investment that we're making.
Absolutely.
And be able to justify this to our stakeholders as to why we are taking this step, because I understand inflation and I understand where we are after COVID and everything else. But just I used to call it in my statistical days, the interocular trauma test. It hits you between the eyes that this is a lot of money. So in relation to, if somebody goes back and says, you spent X dollars to build Morris Lawrence, which was probably $1.5 million or something like that, and you're spending $20 million to build this fingernail on the side of campus, you know, I want to be able to say, well, this is why, and this is how we're leveraging this investment, and each of us needs to go back and talk to our respective people and say, you know, this is why it makes sense, and, you know, Rose and Bill, you know, have told us, you know, this, and this, and we trust them, and, you know, so let's just, you know, I just think we got to dot our i's and cross our t's, because A, it's kind of a showpiece building, B, it's a lot of money, and C, you know, people are going to ask why, and I think, you know, you do a lot of this, you know, sort of high-tech, you know, sort of saying, you know, this is the future and everything else, and it probably is, but let's make sure we can say, this is what some kid who's enrolled in Ipsy High right now is going to get if he comes to Washington Community College. This is how it's going to help that kid.
Yeah.
You know, that's to me, you know, it's also important to say, we're becoming something different too, that we have all these trades that come here and all these partners that come looking to us for advanced training. And this is why it helps. But I mean, you guys have to line up all those arguments to help us, because
Sure.
we're your least severe critics.
And believe
Well
me,
said, yeah,
I would
but that's true.
never, ever, I'm so conservative.
I know you are. I know you
Recommend
are.
anything
I know you
that
are.
I would think would be outrageous. I wouldn't even recommend this.
Oh, no, listen, I personally understand. I have all the trust in the world with you guys. It's just that this is, to me, a material change from what we had previously talked about. And I think it's important that when you make a material change, there be material justification.
Absolutely.
You have a comment, Ruth?
Well, I just want to reiterate that I'd like to see some projection or reality in terms of students out there, programs for those students. I mean, as I talk to students in the advanced transportation program here, there aren't that many because they can't do the math. So if we're going to do something this fancy, where are we going to get students who can do the math? They're going to U of M. We're not teaching them, we're not doing the math here. So
Several-
I'm really worried about our pipeline for this, that's all, and I'd like to see the numbers.
Several of our automotive technology instructors have told me that in order to feed our programs, that what we should be doing is going to the high schools to get them at the sophomore and junior level
Absolutely.
in math and sciences and things, so that they have some tools to work with when they come into our
It's a
classrooms.
huge gap for not only this technology, but it's a huge gap for nursing. It's a
Yeah.
huge gap all the way around, but I don't see the math center being built on front campus to teach everybody to do math so they can do these programs. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm looking for that balance. Maybe they should read and write too, but that's a whole nother question.
I think, what did we say, 45% of our students this year, Linda? I think I read it in that capital outlay report, are here for occupational education. Okay, I can't believe that that's going to look the same in 5 years.
Oh, absolutely.
So whatever we did before that we thought was the right thing to do with the paint, auto body paint shop, and all these other things, whatever we thought then that was the right thing, I don't know. You know, I'm just saying, everything changes.
There's so much
And so,
that they need the math for.
But it's always been like that.
well, we have the
Well,
buildings.
it's getting worse. mean,
I understand that,
it's
but, you
growing.
know, when I was a counselor at the county, I used to go to the open houses that the builders and electricians and, you know, whatever else they were. And high school students would be there. And the question was asked, I don't know if it was me or somebody, but anyway, the question was asked, what is it that you need from these students who are coming here? And they said three things: how to read, how to do math, and just think. And another one was to be on time. But the number one was reading and math. That was back 30 years ago, and it's still the same. So it is probably not much better or worse from them. So, you know, I think, Bill, you may have a good suggestion here, you know, which I know we have good relationships now that Linda is with the superintendents. You know, we need these students. Not so much that we want the the cream of the crop, but we're going to need to have students to come here to go into these fields, the scientific skills, fields, excuse me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Dr. Blanca? You good?
I'm good, but we got a lot of classrooms to teach math in. We have a lot of classrooms to teach math and English and,
I'm not
we
saying-
have a lot of classrooms.
I'm just worried about
I know,
where
you're
the
right,
students are from.
honestly, I'm
Yeah,
just saying,
right.
you're right, you are right.
But
How
that's
many
the
did you
problem
say?
with advanced transportation now.
What?
You said
Don't know that.
I'm done.
We're good. All right, anything further on our agenda? We need to cover?
Do you want to know anything else about money?
Nope.
About the new, I wouldn't want to talk about it either right now.
It's a lot to absorb right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just, I'm
That was a
teasing, you
good
know.
presentation.
That was a good
thank you very
discussion.
much.
Very good discussion and
Very, very good.
If there is no further lively discourse, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this retreat.
So moved.
And support?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for your attention. The retreat is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.